Hi, I'm Coach Dan Gordon, and welcome to my podcast for badass entrepreneurs only. If you're an entrepreneur who loves hitting it hard, growing your business, and learning from billionaires how to succeed, then you are clearly badass and you are going to love my show. But if you just want to take life slow and easy, you aren't badass, don't even bother listening. For the rest of you, strap in, for Badass Entrepreneurs Only is taking off now. Hi, I'm Coach Dan Gordon, and today I'm speaking with Jim Katzaroff. And while you probably don't know the name Jim Katzaroff, you probably will very soon. He is president and CEO of GlobeStar Therapeutics Corp, a company who has made tremendous progress in solutions for people suffering from MS and muscular dystrophy. Now, I just so happen to be seated next to Jim at the Los Angeles benefit for MS. And what he told me about what he and GlobeStar are doing in creating life-changing solutions for people suffering from neuromuscular diseases blew my mind. I begged him to be on the show, and that's why Jim is here today. If you want to know what it takes to be a global impact entrepreneur, you're going to want to listen to what Jim Katzaroff has to say. But before we get there, know this. Right now, in this moment, you have the power to live your life unlimited. For Badass Entrepreneurs Only can show you the way. Today, I promise to open your mind, to set your thinking on fire, to pull back the curtain on your world and show you what you're truly capable of achieving. Come with me and enter a new reality of infinite success. The doors are locked. The stage is set. It's time to get badass. Ready? Let's go. There are two words in the English language that are the most tragic words anyone can speak. The words are, I can't. Ironically, people tend to speak these two words at the moment they're about to do something amazing. Think about it. When do you say, I can't? When you're about to tie your shoe or fill up the car with gas? No. It's when you're about to make a huge, life-changing decision. You get so close to stepping into your true greatness, and then, like a giant flashing red light, I can't drains your determination. And why? Because you'd rather live a mediocre life? No. It's because I can't is doing the job of protecting you from potential devastation. I can't is your fallback to a position of safety. Well, here's the deal. If you want to live an extraordinary life, you're going to have to forget about safety. Forget about certainty, ease, and comfort, and say hello to doubt. If you want to be a successful entrepreneur, you better start making friends with doubt. Doubt is going to be your buddy. Doubt will be with you at every choice and at every moment. Doubt will be constantly whispering to you scenarios of potential pain and unhappiness. And most of all, doubt will encourage you to speak those tragic words over and over and over again. I can't. So what do you do to overcome doubt? Well, simple. You prove it wrong. You prove it wrong over and over again by failing over and over again. In failing, you will discover that failing doesn't kill you. It doesn't stop you. It doesn't even slow you down that much. Failing will prove to doubt that you can thrive through anything. And most of all, after a couple of good failures, those tragic words, I can't, will soon become, I can, and then, I will. If you'd like some help in mastering your thinking and reducing your fears, I'd like to send you a free copy of my book, Jumping the Gap, Kill Your Story, and Take Action. Just text the word GAP, G-A-P, to my personal cell phone, 213-409-8366. Text GAP. This book will help you in recognizing the greatness that lives inside of you. Again, text the word GAP to my cell phone, 213-409-8366. GAP to 213-409-8366 and get a free copy of my book, Jumping the Gap, Kill Your Story, and Take Action. Well, let me introduce to you James C. Katzaroff, an amazing entrepreneur. Jim has been at the helm of 6 different companies. Currently, he holds the position of chairman and CEO at Virexit Technologies, a biotech company, chairman and CEO of Apogee Biometrics, a biotech company, chairman, president, and CEO at GlobeStar Therapeutics Corp, which is, guess what, a biotech company. You think you have it tough running one company? Try being Jim. He is also on the board and managing director of several other biotech companies. And what are these companies doing? Making boner pills? No. Jim Katzaroff is working on solutions for some of the most debilitating neuromuscular diseases on the planet. Jim is in the business of eradicating disease and freeing millions and millions of people from the kind of suffering that most of us can't even imagine. Jim began his entrepreneurial life by starting an import business while he was in high school, bringing in minerals and pewter from Brazil. Today, Jim is highly regarded internationally for his proven expertise in corporate engineering. He has created a worldwide reputation for being one of the most trustworthy executives in business because of his passion, commitment, and proven ability to be a solution provider to the most complex issues that challenge all growth companies. It was his love for solving complex problems which ultimately led him to the field of biotechnology and GlobeStar Therapeutics Corp. Today, Jim will be sharing his knowledge and expertise on how to build a solution-oriented business, how to create a worldwide reputation for excellence, and just why he chose to tackle some of the most problematic diseases that have been plaguing mankind for hundreds of years. We are so unbelievably fortunate to have him with us today, so let's get to it. Jim Katzaroff, welcome, welcome, welcome to Badass Entrepreneurs Only.
Thank you so much for the opportunity here to share some of my story and help others out there. That's really what it's all about, right?
I think so. And look, I don't know what you're doing on my little puppet show. You should be on 60 Minutes, but I'm not going to push you away. I really appreciate you being here. I want to get to the whole we're curing MS thing in just a moment. But first, I want to ask you about your first business in high school. And the reason I want to talk about that first is I think it points to who you are as an entrepreneur. Like importing pewter from Brazil is the most unlikely business for a high schooler to start. I think just like working on a cure for MS is an unlikely business for anyone to start. So how did the importing business come about?
My uncle and aunt lived down in Sao Paulo. We were close. I saved up, I think it was $631 for my round trip flight on Aero Peru back in 1972, I guess. And just going down there and meeting some of the family and seeing the opportunities there. I mean, all the things that have to go in between business licenses, shipping companies, all these bills of lading, insurance, all these things. But, I just kind of go through a checklist. I use a saying, and I do it all the time. The only thing more expensive than education is ignorance. And it's really true. The only thing more expensive than education is ignorance. And if you're ignorant in what you're doing, it gets expensive. Most people don't live. Most people just exist. And that's something that bothers the daylights out of me. But I think we owe it to ourselves to do what might be the impossible for your neighbor, but that you can do. Make it a better world every day.
I got to push back a little bit on you, Jim, because what you said about the import business is like, oh, I just saw this thing and like, oh, hey, yeah, I could turn a dime into a dollar. There was something bigger going on there. Actually, most people would look at it, but not see it. What do you think it is about you that saw this thing and so, oh, wait a second, this might be complicated, but I want to give it a try. Why?
I guess my parents installed in me enough confidence to just say, my shoulders are big. I can take the heat. I actually Love the challenge. I grew up in a small town north of New York City. My first 15 years, I lived next door to the New York Times science editor. I got to hang out with Arthur C. Clarke when he was in town. I got to barbecue for him. I was the babysitter for several of the Yankees, lived in our little cul-de-sac. So I've grown up with a lot of fantastic, fabulous people around. And I try and become a sponge from some of these successful people and some of their thoughts, wishes, and wants. And I bring it internal, and then I try and bring it external with all my counseling I've done, my coaching I've done, et cetera.
So, what I hear, a couple things here is like, okay, you've gotten counseling, you've gotten coaching. Like, I hear that you are on the lookout for more information. It's like what you said earlier. Hey, I better pour into my head a lot of knowledge, or it's going to get really expensive really quickly, right?
Correct.
The other thing, please go ahead.
No, I was just going to add to that it's really important for me to have somebody want to learn. You can't force somebody to learn. They have to have their eyes open, their ears open, and the belief in the absolute certainty that either what they're selling, and which includes selling yourself, that you have to believe it with authenticity. Otherwise, people know you're a fraud.
And what's cool too is what I hear you saying is like, just because you do believe in it, it doesn't automatically, make you great at selling, right?
That's correct.
It's another skill that you have to learn. How do you think you learned how to sell so well?
Boy, that's a wonderful question. I'm not positive, other than my father lived in 11, 12, 13 different countries. He came to this country from Argentina, and he only knew 2 words of English, no and yes. But he worked his butt off and became the leading computer expert for the New York Stock Exchange and Merrill Lynch for years when we lived in New York. And so I was very blessed because, again, I got to know senior management at Merrill Lynch, senior management at the exchanges. And I found out from my father, don't be the smartest guy in the room. Hire the smartest people, all right, and help manage them to be better. And that's kind of my whole take. Everybody in my companies are smarter than I am. I just have my skill set. I know where I can't go.
You're singing my song, man. I say that all the time. Like, I want to be the dumbest guy in the room. And the funny thing about that is when you get your wish, it's a pushback on your ego. I mean, I've recently joined a group of some really smart guys. And it's like, oh, wait a second. I am like the dumbest guy in the room by a factor of 1,000. And did you ever have that experience of like, okay, I got to just like learn and be open and not worry about what other people think of me? Did you have that experience?
I've never worried about what other people think of me. I'm that, I don't want to say arrogant. I'm just that confident that if Joe Blow doesn't like me, okay, or doesn't want to do something, that's fine. Next, when I started as a stockbroker in the early 80s, I had to back then we had cold calling. You remember that?
Oh, yeah.
I'd have to make 200 calls a day. Hi, my name is Jim Katzaroff. I'm with XYZ firm. If you could use 10% tax-free income, I'd like to mail it out to you. Well, I got a broker. Of course you've got a broker. That's where you're living in Santa Barbara. But give me 1% of your trust and let me try and earn the other 99%. And I'll be darned, but I did seminars, radio, TV, and did very well for myself and my clients.
That's fantastic. And, here's what I'm getting from you, Jim, like right away is a willingness to step into the fire that a lot of people aren't willing to do. And you say that it's confidence, but I'm going to say it's more willingness, because you can have all the confidence in the world, but still in order to do the thing, to pick up the phone and those cold calls, it doesn't feel great, but you were willing to do it.
Correct. And stick to it. That's really key, is to stick to it. And then I got to teach stockbrokers how to behave, how to do a seminar, all these sort of things.
And I also hear some members of my audience saying, well, he lived next door to this guy. He was introduced to these people. He probably was well off. That's why he's successful. But it still took you to create those relationships. Just because those people were around you didn't mean that those relationships happened automatically.
Correct.
Right. And so how do you think you built those relationships where people wanted to introduce you to Arthur C. Clarke or wanted you to hang out with them?
One of the best stories that my family tells is when I was 4 years old and there was a big family reunion, probably 30, 40, 50 of us in upstate New York. And I just would sit down in the middle of all the adults and start talking and bantering with them and understanding, what do you do for a living? How come? I was one of those kind of guys. And I still am.
And I want to punctuate what you just said. What do you do for a living? How come? Because most people begin and end a conversation with, what do you do for a living? And they're like, right. But when you ask how come, now you're asking a personal question about their connection, their emotional connection.
Absolutely. You're right. You're spot on. You can't be afraid of failure in doing this stuff. I mean, it's plain and simple. Churchill is the one who said that success is walking from failure to failure and keeping your enthusiasm.
Right.
And
yeah.
Some things work and some things don't. But, belief and certainty that what you're doing is the right thing and that you're trying to impart something good to the world.
Mm. And I'll tell you, man, when I met you at the Erase to Erase gala, that's a pretty high level event, right?
Oh, yeah. That's great.
And, you couldn't get in there for $5. It was pricey, but you didn't seem like the person who I've discovered who you are. You were really interested in asking questions about me. You were very personable. And when I learned more about you, like, this guy didn't have to show any interest in me whatsoever. Like, I'm nothing compared to the things that you're doing. And yet it seems to be in your DNA to show a level of interest in other people. Is that strategic? Do you have to think about that? Or is that just who you are?
That's just who I am. I mean, there's a divine thread throughout all of us, right? And quite frankly, I think that I was blessed with the life I've had, and I'm not over yet. We've got lots to do, including the MS situation.
Yes. Which we'll talk about in just a moment.
Yeah. I mean, all of this stuff, somebody has to do it. And I'm happy to be the guy to do it.
Okay. So I want to ask you about this because this is a real entrepreneurial question. And then we'll get to GlobeStar, but it seems that you're running about half a dozen businesses at once. And for most people, most entrepreneurs, just running one company is a struggle enough. How do you manage multiple companies?
I'm really only doing 2 full-time right now. Everything else is off. I had a nuclear medicine company that is treating dogs and cats and horses for cancer. I'm a shareholder, but I'm not there all the time anymore, but I started that company. Apogee Biometrics is no longer, but on my board of directors is Bob Gates, the ex-CIA director, but it just wasn't working. The technology wasn't working. And it's like, okay, take the hit and move on.
Yeah. Okay. Wow.
So in terms of the MS and the Virexit, they're both very fascinating. Virexit is a little more difficult because of all the moving parts between the whole COVID healthcare issues. And of course, GlobeStar we're on track that if what we've already found in the Italian trials is fantastic. Change the world. If we can duplicate that or come close to duplicating it here, we have changed the world dramatically. And, I pray for that to happen.
And so let's get to it, Jim. GlobeStar Therapeutics Corporation, a clinical stage pharmaceutical company focused on the treatment of MS and other neurodegenerative diseases. And what you're doing isn't theoretical. You already have a patented method for treating MS. And now you guys are in discussions with the FDA for clinical trials. This is no small thing, Jim. Are you curing multiple sclerosis?
We're not allowed to say cure, right?
Okay. What can you say?
However, we have seen incredible results from our trials in Italy. All right. And we need a hospital to sponsor us, if you will. It's called an IRB, the Investigational Review Board. And we are knocking on the doors to get one of the hospitals to say yes. And then we'll be off to the races. And I get calls every week from people around the world saying, please, let me be part of the next trials.
And so, I mean, where do I start with this? Why MS? Why this, which is something that has been unsolvable for hundreds of years.
Well, let me give you the backstory. The backstory is
Please.
I was on the board of directors, a biotech company, and I really got along with one of the gentlemen. And I tapped him as my CFO for GlobeStar, but it wasn't called GlobeStar at the time. It was a reverse merger. But the company was handed to me to do what I wanted to do with it. It's like a lump of clay. But the reality is that he had a friend from Italy who in his 20s contracted MS. His dad was extremely wealthy. They traveled the world, tried everything, nothing worked. So they decided to go back, start their own compound pharmacy in Italy, try their own soups, if you will, and put things together. Well, they did. So what this is a pill that's taken twice a day for 45 days. It's got 3 pre-approved FDA drugs in it with our secret formula. All right. Well, it's absolutely amazing. But it came to me just through providence. There was nothing and what I did was I reviewed all the papers. I said, I'm not a doctor, but I work with several radiation oncologists. I worked with 2 other people in the biotech. And I said, what do you guys think? 100% of those people said, we've got to try this. If we could show the right mode of action, if we can show anything close to what you've done in Italy, it's an amazing, amazing feat. So I think that this year is going to be quite interesting for everybody in this field.
So these doctors, they looked at the information, and did you get a sense from them that like, hey, there's something here. This isn't just pie in the sky.
100%. I helped the Global Health Alliance start in Seattle. And so the woman who started that, I went to her first and said, here, with all your contacts around the world, all the people you hang out with, take a look. She said, well, my husband, he was either the CEO or the chairman of the board of the largest degenerative disease place in Seattle. He looked at it and said, my goodness, this is phenomenal. Go for it. So a few $1 million later, we're going for it.
Wait a second. Hold on. You just skipped over something there, Jim.
What?
A few $1 million later.
Well, it's actually been very, very little right now. It's like $1 million, $2 million. That's it. But the next round with our bankers out of New York will be a $20 or $30 million private placement.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's
how do you get $2 million to pull the trigger on this?
How did I do it? Friends and associates in my past being able to say, here's what we have. You take a look. Don't believe me. I want you to be educated. And it has not been difficult at all because this is so phenomenal if it comes anywhere close to the Italian.
So we were talking briefly before the interview started, and we're kind of joking around about being an entrepreneur and that 3 a.m. night sweats, and talking about the movie The Secret, where it's the law of attraction, just sort of like put it out there to the universe and it shows up. But of course, what The Secret doesn't talk about are the 3 a.m. pacing the halls. What am I doing? The partner saying, are you sure you don't just want to get a regular job? And that's the suffering part of being an entrepreneur. Was there a suffering part of this decision? Was there a part of you going, boy, if this doesn't work out, this is going to be a bummer?
You know what? I just have to believe the smarter people around me that this should work. We've done a lot of work at Mass General. We're hoping to do some work at Cedars-Sinai in LA. And when the top 1% of the top 1% of the people in the field are going, oh, this is interesting. We better check this out. Then who am I to stop them?
And was there any part of this decision where you're like, okay, if this doesn't exactly work out the way that I want, here's what might happen? Did you think of that at all?
Well, I think that we have multiple opportunities in this disease field. Okay. We think that the same compound may work for ALS. We're not certain yet, but I'm being told out of Italy, it has had some good success. And I do not believe that we're all making a mistake. I believe everybody's looked at it saying, yes, yes, yes.
And I would guess that your willingness to say yes probably comes on the heels of a lot of trial and error prior to this, where you took chances and they didn't work out, but you were able to rebound.
Yeah. Edison said, look, 10,000 times it took. But the reality is that, as Mae West said, we really, are not measured by the breaths we take, but by how we take away our breath. And this is a deal that takes away my breath. I mean, I wake up, I fall asleep to it. And every once in a while, that 3 a.m. does come. I usually allow one night every month, just let it go. I mean, go ahead, stay up, read, watch a movie, etc. But once a month, I allow myself to go through those full sweats.
And thank you for saying that, Jim, because that's super personal. But it's also very important for people listening to hear that. It's a bit of a diet, right?
Yeah.
Where you're saying, hey, okay, I give myself 1 day a month to worry. And the rest of the time, I'm going to be spot on.
Correct.
And I think
I got whiteboards all around, right stuff. Oh.
And I think that's a very human approach to it, because you can't push your feelings away. You're going to have thoughts and feelings, but I think what you're doing is you're managing them in a very productive way. And it seems to me, looking over your career, that management has been the cornerstone of your success.
I'll go with it.
Yeah. It seems like from the very beginning, you are super passionate about building relationships.
Yes.
Like I know that you build relationships between private investors and investment banking.
Yes.
And that's a tough relationship to build. How do you do that?
Oh boy, that's a tiptoe through the tulips type of issue. You just never know where that's all going to go. But I've been doing this for 40 years. And so I have a lot of people that I can talk with. And if they're not the right people, then they can get me to the right people. My securities attorney is 90 years old. Bob Sunfeld. I'm telling you, he's 90 years old. I stay at his guest house in Houston. He drives me around Houston in his Lexus, and he knows everybody in securities, still practicing, obviously. And if he doesn't know them and I don't know them, then either they're a bad guy or there's a good guy that we haven't seen yet.
And again, I'm hearing this thread from when you were a little kid, and you're saying to people, what do you do and why do you do it? Getting into a relationship with someone else, a senior person. And so it seems like, from what I'm hearing, this is what you do in building these relationships. You look around for people to help and support you in what you're doing. And
or if I can help and support them, I do both. Because if I can help, I will. If I can't help, I'll tell you,
And in these investing relationships, typically these are people who are pretty skittish about money. They want to make sure as much as possible that they're getting paid back. So that's a lot of negotiation. Like, how do you walk through that with them?
Very carefully. Very carefully.
Can you elaborate?
Well, you really want to tell them the truth. You want to tell them the good, the bad, the ugly. And that's who I am. A name that you guys would know is Stan Lee. So I was friends with Stan Lee,
Wow.
I've got his carpet from his last CEO job in my garage.
Cool.
Before he died, he just said, "Hey, Jim, sell this stuff, but after I'm dead." He's such a wonderful guy. Really was a great guy. We were talking about relationships. I started a company called Relational Connectivity Inc. back in the late 90s. And it was a deal where I was in business with two of the guys from NSYNC and Britney Spears.
Come on.
And I ended up walking away just because Britney was a little difficult at that time. I mean, that's just how it is. But
yeah.
And Lance Bass, interesting. And Chris Kirkpatrick, interesting. Some of these guys are great. And you know some of the entertainment crowd. And some people are wonderful. And it doesn't matter, but it's all about what is it you'd like to do next? And that's part of what I work on. What do you want to do next? How can I help you? How can you help me? How do we work together? I hope enthusiasm has got something to do with it. I hope that they know that I'm not somebody to quit. I was the captain of all my swim teams, my water polo teams, youth pastor, all this stuff. So I've been a leader all the way through. And most of the time, not always, I can take somebody by the hand and walk them through the investment process successfully.
So if I was listening to this and I started to put together in my head, okay, I want to follow Jim's recipe for success, so I better get into leadership.
Yes.
and I better start supporting people. Can you give my audience some suggestions for how to be a successful leader that people want to follow you?
Well, I think they should be reading as much as possible on how to sell, how to manage, things like we did in high school. I made all my team go to Evelyn Wood speed reading. Okay. So they could read more and understand more. Okay. And I just,
Like a water polo team?
yeah. I
Wow.
made my team go. It was like, we're doing this. I was a youth pastor for kids in high school, and I made them all go to the Dale Carnegie.
Oh, yeah.
So that they knew how to talk, present, discuss, ask questions. So that's part of my life. That's part of why I've been more successful than not.
Well, when I read How to Win Friends and Influence People, my biggest takeaway from that was be interested in other people.
Yep.
Show genuine interest. And so what is it that you do to show genuine interest in other people?
I think asking questions and trying to help and assist. I think always being there for them too. A lot of people hide behind an email. I don't like that. If you want to talk to me, call me or text me and I'll call you right back. I mean, just an email. I have had to teach several employees over time. Sending an email is not doing your job. You have to have a relationship with these people. Oh, well, I sent it to you 3 days ago. Well, did you call that person? Tell them to look for that's what they wanted? And if not, then, it's deleterious to your future.
I think you might agree that there's a real opportunity right now because most people do hide behind email. Most people do hide behind text. So an ability to relate verbally to others can really make you stand out right now.
I believe so. I think so. I want to get to know people. I'm up in the hills of Honduras, the hills of Guatemala, down in Brazil, in the jungle. I mean, all these places. I love to talk to people. And what I find really fascinating are teenagers and what they think the world is like, or what they think they want to do in life, or how to go about it, et cetera. And I really do enjoy that very much, helping them.
What are you finding that they are thinking about? Because these are the people who, we're going to be in business with in not that long.
That's right. Well, I think half of them aren't thinking. That's unfortunate. Just half of them aren't, and they're skating. And we all know that. And the last few years have been very difficult. But those who have decided to go to work, dig their heels in, and are comfortable and have confidence, and or they go ask questions, stuff like SCORE, right? The retired executive, these sort of people. Yeah. So go get help if you need help, for heaven's sakes. So that's simple.
And, the other thing is I find that typically people who have a big vision, people who are pulling giant levers in life to bring those visions into reality, they tend to have reputations of not being the nicest people in the world. Elon Musk, Steve Jobs, these are people who did amazing things, but they were typically hard to work with. You seem to be pulling giant levers, but have the opposite reputation.
I do my best. Yes.
How do you think you've accomplished this?
I think I just wake up sunny every morning. And how do I make the world a better place today? And how do I get to bond with some of these other people, online at the grocery store or online at the MS event? Okay. Behind me were two beautiful women in wheelchairs and beautiful gowns.
Yes.
I just got to know them. A fantastic relationship in 30 seconds. It's wonderful, but it is cool. We have so many challenges anyway, but do you want to just think about the negative challenges or the positive challenges? Be positive.
You're painting a picture, Jim, is that everything always works out for you. But I would imagine that there were times where you struggled, where things didn't work out. Can you talk about an experience that you had that was really tough, that you made it through?
Well, the toughest one was the failure of Apogee Biometrics. It was somebody I met on the plane. They started telling me about it all, told me who was on the board of directors, an ex-president of Microsoft. And this was back in 2001. We were trying to work with the subway system very heavily and the rest, but we just couldn't get the technology to work. So that was a big failure. That was my single biggest failure in terms of business.
When that didn't work, did it hit your self-confidence?
No, because I didn't create the company. I came in to fix the company, but I couldn't fix it. It just, the technology wasn't there, and it still isn't there.
It seems to me like you just aren't willing to connect who you are as a person in the world with whether or not things work out in your favor. Right?
I think that's correct. That's fair.
It's like, okay, this company didn't work, but it doesn't mean that I'm a screw up. It doesn't mean that I'm a bad person.
That's right.
And again, is that a part of your personality, or is that something that you develop?
I don't have a full answer because I can't remember not being the way I was.
Yeah.
Again, from the time I was 4, and they told this story all the time. But, I just sit down in the middle of the grown-ups and start asking questions and talk.
Another thread that I'm really hearing is like, okay, look, not everybody is born with a sunny disposition or resilience, but it doesn't mean that you can't develop it.
Oh, I absolutely agree with you. I have a very wealthy friend who has worked to develop a proper mannerisms in business and has to work on it. But he's gotten fantastic. So it can be done. It can be a learned skill.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so what's on the horizon for GlobeStar? What's next?
Well, I need to get the hospital, to get one of the hospitals to say yes. And then we'll get the test going. And if it's anything like certain people think it is, it's going to be a huge company. And fortunately, I've got a guy that I want to replace me. I'm hoping that he is the man to take this thing all the way through, because it's not my area. I help put these things together, put people together.
Oh, no kidding. So what would be the next thing for you then? You're going to reduce the amount of time in GlobeStar. What do you want to do next?
I haven't thought of next. I really know that this road is something that I'll be on for a while. I think that, events like we just did together. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. The Race to Race MS.
And there's also a lot of course, conferences all around the globe, of which, I've spent, based on my nuclear medicine company, I've spent a lot of time in Russia and in Ukraine and Kyiv in particular, by the way. And I get along very well with them. And I like meeting other cultures. I have a saying when people say, "How are you?" It's like hard to describe. And I use that because it's hard to describe. I had a friend who I finally asked him, "What do you do for a living?" He says, "Well, I'm a Xerox salesman." I said, "Really?" I was like, "Oh." He says, "Well, here in Santa Barbara, my 2 roommates started Kinko's, and I got the rights internationally to sell for Xerox." So this is 1981 or 82. He went from 80,000 to over 3 million. He earned more than the CEO and chairman, et cetera, at Xerox. But every time I call him, "Harry, how you doing?" Hard to describe. So I use that opening all around the world. And you'd be surprised at how many people think that's a negative and how many other people say, "Hey, that's cool. Can I use that?" And I say, as long as I can tell you the story, this is a true story. It will be in my book, but this is a true American story. The guy just happened to have roommates who started thinking about it. He went to work for Xerox and he got the deal. Fantastic. Wow. Isn't it awesome?
It is. And I want to point out, look at all these people in your life. It's not an accident, Jim, that you have these amazing high achievers around you. It's not luck.
Including yourself.
Thank you. Thank you. I take that as the highest compliment, Jim. Thank you.
Pleasure.
It's said often, your tribe is your vibe. Who you are is who you attract. Mm-hmm. And I can tell you, in my mid-20s, I took a look around and the people in my life weren't the people that I liked. And I thought, I better make some changes. And I did. And so, that's why I love doing what I do, because anything is possible. You put your mind to it, you can create any kind of change that you want. It doesn't matter what situation you started with. And, what you have done with a tremendous amount of charisma and self-confidence is really wonderful, because what you're doing is you're affecting people on a global level. Indeed. And I'm also curious, like, are you getting stars involved? Of course, Michael J. Fox is now a big advocate about MS research. Are you reaching out to him?
So we have not yet tapped stars. Our friend Lori is introducing me to wonderful people such as yourself that can spread the gospel. And let's continue on. Let's get this stuff done.
When do you think GlobeStar Therapeutics will be a household name.
Well, I think once we get the hospital, okay, start trials, we'll do the whole CNN, we'll do everything. Fox,
Yeah.
et cetera, podcasts, you name it. I want to make the world a better place. And this is a fantastic vehicle to do so.
And again, a vision for bringing something great to the world. If an entrepreneur doesn't have that, look, I mean, even if you come up with a new kind of pencil,
Right.
there has to be a vision about how the new pencil is going to bring something really cool to the world.
Correct.
And if it's just about, hey, I could make a lot of money with this, it's not sustainable, is it, Jim?
No. It's never been my MO. In fact,
Yeah.
I'm certain I've left a lot of money on the table because since I was about 30 or 40, I decided if I don't want to be in the room with that person, he's not going to be my partner. Okay. Or she, right?
Yeah.
If I don't want to hang out with you, if I don't want to go to dinner with you, all right, breakfast, walk on the beach, then why? There's so many wonderful people out there.
And it is that abundance mentality that is so critical to the entrepreneurial.
I'm going to write that down. Abundance mentality. I like that.
Thank you. And it's what I'm hearing throughout our talk, Jim, is that there's an infinite number of people out there to connect with. There's an infinite number of business ideas. The attachment to one person, one idea, one way of being will choke any entrepreneurial vision. And your willingness to step into a very unlikely business for success, I think, is born on the back of a lot of, well, let's do it and see what happens, rather than, oh, gee, I hope this works out.
No kidding. But most people do that. Many people do I hope it works out,
right,
as opposed to making it work out. It takes a lot of grinding. And there are catastrophes, but being educated means you can be confident. So what we're going to be doing next is getting one of the hospitals to show the confidence in us that, oh my goodness, what you've done is really amazing. For instance, the CFO who brought this to me, they had several people with MS, gave them the capsules. This one woman who had not, for I think it's 6 years, been able to take a shower by herself or sit down or get out of a chair in 2 weeks was able to walk. So it's just phenomenal.
And just to be clear, you're talking about, and correct me if I'm wrong, was it a 6-dose program?
No. This is for 45 days, 2 pills. Okay, one in the morning, one at night, 45 days only. And that's as long as we'll have the trials as well.
I see.
We'll probably only have 25 to 50 people in those trials here in the States. Okay, so it's not going to cost very much money. It's not going to take very long. And because if we can show efficacy, in 45 days, where do we go from there, et cetera?
And would this be something like a cholesterol pill where you just keep taking it for the rest of your life?
The principal keeps taking it, and he's had no relapses, no nothing. I can't say about the other 148 people that were part of it because I don't know them.
Just out of curiosity, the woman who wasn't able to shower on her own and with the treatment was able to get up.
Yeah.
Is she still being treated, or was it just for a short period of time?
Not that I know of, but again,
I see.
That's not my area.
I know we can't use the word cure, but let's say cure-ish. Is that what you see? Like something like, hey, this just is not going to be a problem anymore for people.
Well, yes, but that's just my opinion. We need to have the empirical, okay? Not just an anecdote because we've seen it work. We need to have what's the mode of, the medication? How does it go through the blood-brain barrier? All these sort of wonderful things. That is not my area, but I'm working with some of the best in the world.
Okay. So to be clear, Jim Katzaroff is not saying he is the cure to MS. What you are saying is that you have some great anecdotal evidence that's telling you you're on the right track. Would that be fair?
100% correct.
Thank you. Right.
Way to go.
I don't want any confusion, right? I don't want you to say, oh, I can't believe I did that stupid podcast because it's now haunting me.
No. We are on the hunt. We are on the hunt for a hospital to then prove all this out. So for anybody out there who has got connections at any of the hospitals that do clinicals, Again, this is a short clinical. It's 45 days, but it will bring a lot of prestige to your hospital, Mr. Jones and Mrs. Jones.
Mm-hmm. If anybody can sell this, Jim, it's you. I see your passion, your love, and your willingness to be really honest with people about what they can and can't expect.
Correct.
And to me, that is the height of being great at sales.
Well, it's a credibility block, right? I mean, you've got to be able to have certainty in what you're doing, but you have to say it correctly so that there isn't a miscommunication. That's when you get in trouble. So you have to have a belief, and then you have to be able to go through A, B, C, D. And again, look, I think this is a fantastic product. It needs to be proven here. And then the world will be going, yes, thank you.
And so within a year, let's say June 20th, 2023, would you imagine that this would be moving along at a pace that people would be aware of it? Or
Absolutely.
Do we have a few more years? Okay.
No, absolutely. I could get this around the world this year in terms of at least letting people see, as long as we get these trials started, this should be something fantastic. If a Michael J. Fox or Sybil Shepherd, et cetera, also help. So everybody's trying to figure it out. What is it? 22 different drugs on the marketplace right now, of which Nancy Davis and her fine team have had everything to do with. And I want to give them another star. And I think we can with GlobeStar.
That's fantastic. And Jim, I just want to thank you so much for being so generous with your time today. The life-changing biotechnology that you're bringing to the world is likely, if it goes the way that you're hoping, likely to relieve the suffering of millions upon millions of people. And so thank you for sharing your thought process, your entrepreneurial vision, because this is priceless information for my audience. Most of us would not be able to gain access to someone like you. So having you here is a rare treat for all of us. And so thank you for being on for Badass Entrepreneurs Only.
Thank you, sir. Bye now.
See you, Jim. Thanks again. And before we wrap up, I want to remind you to get a free copy of my book, Jumping the Gap, Kill Your Story and Take Action. Just text the word GAP, G-A-P, to 213-409-8366. It will help you take bold new action on your entrepreneurial journey. Text the word GAP, G-A-P, to 213-409-8366. And I also want to thank you. Yeah, you. The you who is listening to this show right now. Thank you for opening your mind and stepping into the world of infinite possibilities. My guests, all of them, breathe the same air you do. There's nothing stopping you from taking bold action, opening up your world, challenging yourself to step up and live your life unlimited. I'm Coach Dan Gordon. Thanks for listening. Now get out there and show the world the next greatest version of you. Hey, if you have some thoughts about the show you'd like to share with us, or if you think you've got what it takes to be a guest, send me a text at 213-409-8366. Let me know what you think, or let me know why you think you'd be a great guest for this show. Thanks again for listening. I hope you're inspired to unleash your badass self on the world.